We're again, and I'm glad you could join me to hear how Katie and Suki were getting on their somewhat interrupted Sunday summer's afternoon walk. So the two friends retraced their steps and found themselves some way along the lane, and as it straightened out, approaching Belvoir Farm, where a little crowd of people seemed to have gathered. And there were sounds of sirens, an ambulance, a fire engine, and several more onlookers. Katie and Suki reached the spot where a small group of people were talking excitedly about what had happened, or at least what they thought had happened. You remember what I told you about Suki? Yes, indeed, he was certainly a gifted and special dog. A somewhat bewildered policeman and a somewhat even more bewildered driver were arguing about what had happened, and a dozen more witnesses were giving their conflicting accounts, I must say. The big blue car itself did not look well. The bonnet was decidedly more crumpled up than Kate had remembered, and it seemed to be snuggling rather too closely to a large granite pillar which was actually standing proudly in the middle of the road. A pool of water had already formed beneath the spot where the car's radiator had collided with the pillar. The driver appeared to be unhurt, unfortunately. Apart from his several dented pride and his badly dented car, there were obviously no other cars or people involved, and the inconsiderate driver was not prepared to admit any fault on his part. But right, that stone right there, I'm telling you now, said a distressed driver, pointing uncomprehendingly at the large granite pillar, that stone just jumped right out in front of me into the middle of the road, and there was nothing I could do but hit it. It was not, and I say, it was not my fault. Yes, sir. Of course, sir, said a policewoman as she reached into her pocket to take out a notebook. Now, sir, let me understand you clearly. You say that the stone, jumped out into the middle of the road. Yes, officer, yes it did, exclaimed the angry driver now. By itself, queried a policeman. Of course, shouted the man. Don't you believe me? Do you think I just tell lies, do you? Have you had any alcohol this afternoon, sir? Asked the policewoman politely, as she could consider the circumstances. I have not been drinking, exclaimed the driver, growing even more angry now. Indeed, sir, she noted down in her book. And approximately what speed were you driving at, sir? Well, of course I was driving, slowly, of course, and carefully. I was driving slowly and carefully. Yes, that's it, slowly and carefully. Slowly and carefully, you say, said the policewoman, and she raised her eyebrow questioningly at the man's words. Ask any of these witnesses, they'll tell you, said the driver. But each of the onlookers gave a different account. But they were all agreed on one thing, that the blue car was definitely going way too fast down the meandering Cat-Owl Lane. The driver was so angry now, the policewoman was confounded and confused, and the crowd were enjoying the whole spectacle immensely. At this point, the girl and the border collie slipped between the onlookers to get a better view of the proceedings. Those with a quick eye might have just seen the little collie with a blue eye wink towards the back of the blue car. Those with the sight may well have observed 8 little reddish-brown thumbs being raised in salute by 8 little reddish-brown hands belonging to the 8 little reddish-brown figures sitting on the parcel shelf on the now crumpled blue car. Before turning to go home, Kate smiled politely at the driver, who now looked thoroughly guilty and deservedly miserable. For her part, Suki stared at the man with her head cocked inquisitively to one side and her ears quivered perkily, standing almost up vertically. The white tip of her bushy black tail wagged in a sign of a silent contentment before she turned to trot obediently after Kate. As they passed in front of the blue crumpled car, Kate and Suki noticed the granite pillar had gone. Where could it possibly have gone? A quick glance to the side of the road was all that they needed to confirm that the granite pillar had definitely been returned to its usual place, alongside the farm gateway. A further glance of her bright blue eye was all that was needed for Suki to see the 8 brown-capped Stone Pouques had also gone, back to their usual place near the quarry perhaps. For her part, Katie did not think it was strange that she counted 8 blue butterflies flittering in a line before 4 waddling ducks on their way back home along the lane. Did you see that, Suki? Called Katie. Oh, the faithful little collie lovingly looked up at Katie as she trotted alongside her. Katie felt certain that Suki winked rather than blinked at her. Can you guess which eye she used? Thank you for joining me that story this evening. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I look forward to welcoming you again shortly as we read another Pouque story. I wonder what they get up to next. Cheery for now though, eh?